Hello, today I'm very happy to have Noah Asanias with us at the channel. He's an amazing photographer and creator, and I have followed his work for a while now. So, without further ado, I would like to ask Noah to please tell me a little bit about himself for the audience. What do you do? Where are you based in? What are your interests, as much or as little as you want?
Yeah. So I think by trade, I'm mostly known as a photographer these days, but this this kind of big transition that's happening, I think with everybody in across multiple industry, we're we are now transitioning to the um, AI era, or people would say it's the golden era of AI right now. So that is changing into more of, I think, as an image creator or an image or a content creator, not just image anymore. Aside from that, I have a few businesses. Like I sell a photography product, for example, and have a retouching company that I'm actually transitioning now into an AI company. So yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining, Noah. And I have also been a mentee for Noah's workshop, so I really recommend his classes. But yeah, I mean, with all the this it has been happening with AI in the creative world, how have you, because you mentioned that you are transitioning one of your businesses, how have you integrated generative AI in the retouching business, but also maybe in your photo shoots or in concepts with clients? How has that been for you? And yeah, just a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, I guess there's multiple fronts of this, but if we, because of different business, but if we start, for example, my retouching company transition into AI company, I wouldn't call it purely generative AI. I guess it's some of it is just, well, I guess it is generative image creation.
Mhm.
Um, so 2018 or 2016, yeah, 2018 until last year, basically, I run a retouching company in Philippines, and I actually decided to close that down and transition to retouching because to AI image creation, because I've seen that um and a lot of people might not like this, but I think retouching is disappearing because of how easy things are now. Like there's a bunch of programs out there and plugins that you can use. Like even Capture One these days, for example, have a built-in retouching, which is already pretty good. So there's a lot of that. So I saw the need for retouching slowly disappearing, which, to be honest, like I'm still surprised sometimes when clients um when I receive emails from different companies for retouching. I was like, oh, like I guess they're not in as deep as us in this world when it comes to research for that. The other aspect is I'm actually moving to an image, so kind of like an AI photo enhance creation. So it's not 100% AI, it's not 100% photo, but it's both. Which is, I personally think, it's very exciting part from me right now, because this is where it shows the expertise of a photographer, but it's also the expertise of an AI orchestrator. I think I was reading, I posted this the other day on my Instagram that people say AI democratized taste, but if anything, it actually exposed the lack of taste. And the reason why I said that, I was talking to another friend about this, is I think because of AI, we all have the same tools in our hands now, but we don't have the same taste or perspective when it comes to visual and art. And yes, some people might call AI image generation or video generation not art, arguably. And I'm not going to go into that topic of debate because that's quite a long debate to get into. But going back to kind of like the topic of where things are going, I'm really excited for this because as a photographer, my biggest struggle before is I need to be in a certain location to serve a certain demographic. So you're very limited to who you can serve. And as an entrepreneur, you know that the more people you serve, the more you get, the more compensation you make, not the more value that you provide. So because of AI, now I've been creating images, for example, for an energy drink company without doing a photo shoot. Well, a photo shoot. We still have to photograph the product to get all the details and whatnot. But all that has become possible, and I can have that while I'm having a pina colada at the beach, for example. I don't have to be in the city anymore to do it, especially with the increasing price of cost of living. I think now it's so nice to have this accessory because we can live in the countryside, for example, or we can travel if we want to. live in a maybe cheaper economy and contribute to that economy, um, while still serving the clientels that we have. Of course, there's a little bit of friction when it comes to that. Some clientels are not maybe as open-minded to AI image generation. Some of the worries are: is it accurate? Is it a good representation of the brand? And those have all merits. So for my studio, for example, we don't accept every client for AI. We kind of filter them to see, like, what are we selling here? Are we selling the actual product? If it's a garment, for example, it's a little harder. But if it's a vibe that you're selling, if it's a story that you're selling, then it's a lot easier. For example, a coffee shop or a matcha company, which I'm actually working on right now.
Oh, great.
You don't need to show the packaging even. You need to show what's what's the story behind someone who drinks a matcha, for example.
Mhm.
Go from macro view, and then you show the problem, and then you show that there's a solution out there, and then you become the Obi-Wan Kenobi of that person. So you take them in this journey through visuals, right? And that's how we've been doing advertising for, I think, as long as advertising was made, is that hero's journey of it. So I think, going back to the AI generation, there's a lot of room for it now, more than it was last year, and it's kind of crazy how fast the progression is. Um, but yeah, anyway, I can keep talking, but I'll let you talk.
No, I think you have great points there. Like, I want to touch in some of them. Like, for example, you said it's like it has been said that we are in the golden era of AI. We are at a point where it just became mainstream. Like, it has been around for so many years, more than we imagine, but it just like exploded. This has been like a massive year, for example, for updates in text to video or image to video, like Google VO3, for example, and within other tools. There's this thing that they said at a conference I was at about AI, that there's this thing called now AI anxiety because there's so many updates. Like this company, Freepik, they put out an update every 3.5 days. And I'm pretty sure that number just went down to 2.5 or something like that,
Wow.
because there's so many updates, and keeping up it can be hard. But I would say focusing on a market, like for example what you are doing with your studio, is great. Focusing on case studies, or even like talking to a friend and maybe make a collaboration to start looking at it as like how to implement it in your workflow. That's just a great way to
Mhm.
start using it. And I'm saying this because I feel there's still, and within some like understandable reason, a lot of fear around AI within the creative community. And I kind of feel, and I would like to know your thoughts about this, that it's even bigger than that. But do you remember like the story of when photography came in and painters were like, oh no, this is just killed all of the painting industry, all of the portraiture industry, like we're done. And what happened, like it started being adopted, photography, and then painting just came out with new movements and new ways to express. Painters just find out a way to make it work, and like both of the mediums like grew, because at the end of the day it's a tool that gives us, empowers our like creative workflow in order to make a better system, right, to serve either our customers or our, or even our just art. So in that sense, I believe it's just like a. I was talking about this with Sergio, my partner. It's like this little mushroom from Super Mario that gives you like superpowers to be more creative, or to have the ability, as you said, to make a shoot. I don't know, at the other side of the world, and maybe you didn't have the medium to go there. And if you do have it, it's amazing. But if you can solve it as like in that sense for now, it's amazing too. So I feel like it will change a lot of the industry. And I would like to ask you, like, how do you feel like the photography industry is being reshaped by generative AI? How have you feel it? Like, I know what you said about your studio and how have you implemented, but like in an overall panorama, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, before I answer that, I think to go back in, when if your statement about painters and photographers and how painters have adopted, I think it's actually beyond just adopting. I think it's about evolving. I'm pretty sure that I'm not 100% sure, there's no facts in but this one, but I could imagine that some of the painters have become photographers through that. It's this evolution of craft, I think, because the reason why I fall in love with photography is the storytelling aspect of it. For example, it's not the medium.
Mm,
Prior to that, I was in advertising as an art director. Prior to that, I did fine arts for I was painting and whatnot. So it's not really the medium that I'm. And it's kind of sad sometimes when someone is so stuck with the medium.
mm,
Um, because I think it's what the medium can do that we artists fall in love with, right? So aside from that, so I mean, it's not just a finding another way, but it's actually learning how to expand what you already have to have a bigger covering, for example, of what you can do. I think that should be the main focus. The other part is when photographers or artists in general are feeling left out, you will feel left out if you don't try to evolve. That being said, I think there's always going to be like the Anna Leibovitz, for example, that's just going to be a legendary photographer. But that's the 1% of the artist, right? So, and if someone is happy to do that, of course, you keep doing that. Like this days, like I used to be more, I guess, pushy with people evolving to AI, but now I realize like no, I think sometimes that's not what they want or that's not what they need. But what was your question again? I'm sorry.
well, I do agree on that, that it's not for everyone, and also I'm not, just to clarify, I'm not trying to praise an AI or anything
Yeah,
like that. Just
that's all
make
right.
a conversation
Mhm,
about like the possibilities of what we can create or how we
mhm.
can evolve in our business, right? So my question was, how do you think like overall the panorama of the photography industry, the creative industry is changing with generative AI coming in? Because you mentioned Capture One, even I just saw the update like 3 days ago, has implemented AI, and I think like since 4 updates ago with the retouching tools, the little brushes and all of that, selective
Mhm.
tool, even Photoshop generative. So how do you see the photography and creative industry changing from this evolution? Because I think that's a very assertive word for what's happening.
I love this question. For the main reason about how it's evolving and how it's changing. If you asked me this a year ago, I probably even 6 months ago, I wouldn't have an answer to this. But recently, I've been really diving into AI and what it can do and how it can benefit more people than having the fear mentality of it. I've recently kind of like somewhat cracked this code on generative AI and image creation. And one thing that became very clear to me, you know, that in photography there was an era. I was talking to a photographer friend about this. It was in the last 10 years, or maybe not in the last two, but the 10 years before that. The thing about photography is all about aesthetics. It's not technical. It's all about aesthetics. As long as you have the eye, doesn't matter if you know how to shoot it, and that is true in a sense. But then there was an era prior to that, and it kind of came back recently where technical skills matters because the only way for you to push your creativity is to know what tools you have so you can push the boundary. Now, this is where I become really excited at with AI. I'm a very technical shooter, so I'm probably biased with this. With AI, you need to be very technical to be able to control it properly. And it's the language and we've seen a million images out there, and most of them are, especially in the first 2 years of AI. Most of the images, and we'll focus on the image for now. Most of the images out there they're good, but they're not great. They're not moving, right? Or we see like very generic image. Let's say if a good looking AI rendering of a female, for example, or a male that's good looking, and but that's it. But the missing part of it is what I was talking in the beginning is the taste. The one who created it doesn't have a background in the technical knowledge that we have as image creators, as photographers that we've trained for years, as painters, as someone who's dived deep into this subject matter, right? So the expertise that we have is the expertise that other people don't have. And that actually what makes us good in image creation, in image generation, I guess. Which is really sad for me that some photographers are not jumping into this. Because what it is the longer you wait, I think, the further behind you get. Because by the time that you decided that okay, that now it's the time that I would do this, everyone around you has already moved on and have learned the language of AI. Because I think image generation really boils down to language. It's LLM, right? At least that's one aspect of it. But with LLM, it's really knowing how to talk to your AI. Like if you say, I don't know, dark shadows, would it give you a shadow with detail, or would it give you just black?
Mhm.
Those kind of things. And I think that's where the beauty of the transition is happening. So I think a lot of us visual creators are actually in a really good place, because someone, let's just say in, I don't know, in finance, wouldn't be able to do what image we generate through AI, because they don't have the language. Even if they know the lens, even if they know the angle, the lighting, it's still not going to be the same. And this is one of the main reason why, like, recently I've been posting some of my tests that I've been doing. This is why I was able to get that skin texture, for example, that a lot of that you don't see in a lot of AI.
Mhm.
Sometimes I feel bad, but I would post an image that's made out of AI and I wouldn't say it, just to see if people will believe it. And it's
Mhm.
just astonishing how much it sells. But the moment you tell people these days that it's AI, they say, "Oh, then I don't like it." And I find that quite funny, actually.
Mhm.
Because for the product sense, for example, let's say Coca-Cola. Well, they did a ad which some people don't like, which I think, yeah, it's not the best creative. But anyway, we're not gonna go into that. Let's say a different product. Colgate
Okay.
toothpaste.
Mhm.
If they created if they created a print ad, for example, that you only see the toothpaste tube and then the toothpaste coming out of it, and it looks, and there's like an explosion at the back, for example, you don't need to photograph that anymore. And even if you generate it all through AI, it's not about capturing it accurately because of the lens distortion and whatnot. Same thing with iPhone. It's probably a better example on iPhone. The iPhone that you see on their website, that's not a photo of an iPhone. That's a 3D rendering of an iPhone.
Mhm.
At least it used to be. So
Mhm.
this really when people say like, well, it's not real, it's like, well, how do you define what's real these days? Is it real because it's tangible? Then in that sense, then it isn't. But if you say that the billboard of an iPhone in the billboard, for example, is real, then it's like, that's not real either because it's not tangible, but it's real. But the product is real. So anyway, I can keep going on and on and on about this.
Yeah, I think you have a really good point there, because at the end of the day, like, we have these, I feel like these key talking points that we have been going back to, which is taste, storytelling, and I guess like expressing yourself, either if it's in a like in a more artistry way or in a commercial way. At the end of the day, if you don't have those two, like taste and storytelling, doesn't matter if it's commercial or in like a
Mhm.
super art film. And at the again, it doesn't matter if it was AI or if it was like Ari Alexa camera and the lights and every, like, the whole production of 80 people. If you don't have soul in what you're doing, taste, and all of these like backstories of what we have learned all over the years, I always say that like the learning point of AI is just one part of the journey of like using it as a tool to create, like, as you said, everything that is before that, like your education as an art director, as a photographer, as a publicist. I mean, yeah, advertising, sorry. All of that sums up to what you're creating, right?
Mhm.
In my case, is like film direction, photography, graphic design, and we could go on with different examples of other artists, like all of what they have learned until this point, and then starting the learning curve of AI has, it's like a, yeah, it's like complementary, right?
Oh,
It's
100%.
not, yeah, it's not just one thing to be able to create the others. So in this sense, like I also I tell the creatives that, get close to me and ask me how to get started. I'm like, just go for it, because the learning curve is, it is kind of, it can be kind of scary, but
Mhm.
once you understand the basics, then just staying up to date is the best you can do to kind of not lose the role of it, because it goes so fast.
Yeah. And I
But
think,
yeah.
yeah, I think a lot of it too is really just having fun with it.
Hmm.
Because if you're having fun with it, you keep exploring, you keep creating. One of the things I like about AI, and this is in general, I think as an entrepreneur, it's important for us to. I keep mentioning this in my mentorship, but to A/B test. try something, see what happens, analyze the data, look at the report, tweak it, send it out in the world again, look at it, tweak it, back and forth until you find the magic recipe.
Mhm.
And that's what AI really is, I think. What when it, not just with LLM, but when it comes to image and video generation as well. It's really tweaking. For example, it's just funny. I haven't used Windows for computer for a long time. I just bought one yesterday because I needed to create this AI and whatnot. And it's been almost probably 24 hours now that I've been just tweaking this and tweaking it and tweaking it. But I find it exciting. I think that's one of the most important part in whatever we do, but especially with AI, I think that it's important that we're having fun in doing this. Because if you're just there being annoyed, maybe you need to take a break a little bit, because it can be frustrating when you don't. It's kind of like talking to somebody that has a different language, but it's a serious conversation that you had that you're really passionate about, and you don't understand the language, so you can't express yourself in a way that the other person would understand. But that's, I think, how, and I keep talking about language, and because that's well, most AI that right now is LLM. um so I think that's really what it is. It's understanding the language of, for example, ChatGPT and Claude, for example, have a different language,
Mhm.
similar but different. um anyway, so understanding those and whatnot.
Yeah, like there's a really interesting point there in language. Like I explain sometimes to my mentees on generative AI, like, you know, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, this author, like Latin American author, and his novels are super detailed. He will be like, you enter the room and the floor is like wooden floor from, I don't know, whichever tree, and then on the back there's a little table with a lamp and da. So he goes on analyzing the whole room before getting to the person he's going to talk about.
Mhm.
So that's how you talk to Midjourney, for example.
100%.
Yeah, so and as you say, like each model also, like when you work with video, will have like, I don't know, for example, Luma will be best with dreamy stuff for people, and Sora for another thing. And so each model will work differently.
Mhm.
VO3, it's like super hyper realistic. And it's just exploring and looking at like what I feel like it's almost like cameras and lights and lenses, like brands. You will get to know which one you work more comfortable with.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, it's also like a freaking long learning curve to understand lighting, right?
Yep.
So it's it kind of applies the same with AI.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I love what you're talking about the storytelling, because I was telling the I was building this my AI right now. It's really about how detailed it is. For example, it would be, I think poets are the best, probably would be the best communicator, because the way they interpret things and word things, it would be, for example, as he sat down in a green plastic chair and it creaks, for example. So those little details are really important, but it's also this fine line of not being too detailed.
Mm.
You need to focus on what part of the image you wanted it to be more detailed and whatnot. Same thing with photography, for example. You can't, it's either you focus on everybody, but that's one unit as everybody, or you
Mhm.
focus on the person in the front and not the flower at the back. You
Mhm.
can't do both. If you put a diopter, for example, people are saying in the technical, well, if you put a diopter, then the focus of the audience, which is what I'm talking about, not the focus of the camera, the focus of the audience is now split, which becomes harder for us as an audience to see which one is the subject. So it's kind of the same with LLMs, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So like from this point, I think the question I have left for you, because we have talked a little bit about businesses and like clients and all of these, but what about your creative process? As I know you're focused more on the business side, but on your creative process, like personal Noah creative process,
Mhm.
have you also implemented AI in a way? And how has that changed for you on the sense of developing a project, for example, or just, yeah, you have an idea and how do you get from there? Now with AI.
Um, I guess for me, it's the opposite right now. It's instead of AI feeding my creative in photography, it's photography feeding the creative in my AI. And the reason why it's opposite right now, because I'm having probably, maybe if you ask me next week, it would be a different answer. But right now I'm heavily diving into generative AI for images, because I'm about to hopefully release this technology that would change the game for a lot of DTC brands. Um, so for me, for example, instead of, because I know people would generate an image, for example, and use it as their mood board. Great. I thought for me, it's a different. I go on a shoot. I see a problem in a shoot. Now I look for a solution using AI. For example, let's say is this it's let's say I did I was bidding right now for a product shot. As I was bidding for the product shot, it was very clear to me that this shoot I would quote it for one day with everybody in was probably going to be about 30 to 50 grand Canadian. But if I do it in AI, I can probably bill with just my rate. Now, of course, like there's gonna be people listening right now that will be upset about this. But if you look at it, if you are the brand, if you are the entrepreneur, you are the one paying, wouldn't you want to save money so you can expand more, so you can help more people in your company? So anyway, the value is different. Anyway, going back to this. So right now for me, instead of looking at as how can AI improve my photography, it's more like what's missing in our photography world that AI can solve. The other thing is coming up with business ideas. I remember when ChatGPT came out, everyone used it for emails, right? Like I say, oh, fix my email, and then send it, and then it's like, oh, it's more professional. But everybody has the M dash, which is very obvious that it's ChatGPT. Um, but then now knowing how smart AI is now, it can also help you create this analysis for. Sorry, we're going back to business again.
That's okay.
Analysis for what are the needs in the market, what are the gaps in the market, for example. It's a lot easier to conduct a research that would probably take you months before. Now you can do it within a few days, and it's a very concrete research. For example, um, I recently, arguably, I'm biased. This is me. I think I've finally cracked the code on how to create a pitch that is impossible to say no.
Oh wow. Okay.
Um, it's a very simple. It's not a formula. Well, it's a formula. It's about storytelling. And the reason why I think this because the people that I've kind of showed this pitch, and these are highly intellectual human beings that I've talked to, have all been sold about what I was pitching them. And the whole pitch, I didn't have to say what my product is, which is even crazy, I think. But I was only able to do that because of the help of AI. It's especially if you learn how to design LLM talking to another LLM. It's like, oh, it's magic. Your months of research boils down to maybe even one day of research. Um, and I had this conversation with my wife recently about um, are we getting smarter? Or are we getting dumber basically by doing these things? What it is our brain can handle. I think our brain can handle all this information, but we orchestrate how it's going to play out. So the way I see it these days, I think companies should be hiring this position right now. It's a AI orchestrator. So what an AI orchestrator does is, let's say a company has a problem, a creative has a problem. Let's go for a company first. So it's language based, not image based. Um, um, a company has a problem. The orchestrator would create multiple, not AI agents, because AI agents is part of it, but multiple ways to orchestrate what the AI that are available to them, and then create something that would solve that problem. The reason this is doable now is because we can't retain all the information that we processed before. But with AI, we can store all those information. I remember I don't know if you remember this in a mentorship where I was talking about building a second brain.
Mm.
That was Notion before, and now that's AI. And the beauty with AI is it retains information when you need it. Anyway, so for me, I think to answer your question, it's the opposite. It's more of how I use the real world situation to fuel what I create in AI.
Definitely, yeah. I think that that is how like this is evolving differently for each person that has been implementing. And now that you say a second brain or storing all of the information, because I do feel like my with all the updates and the like I need to study way more than I used to. Like I have always liked to be updated in anything I do, like latest techniques or recent like software. hands-on camera techniques, lighting, everything, right? But with AI, I feel I just have been studying so much more to be able to be at the level that this is going, like as fast as it's going. And it has so many industries that's in, not just like image creation or language models, like there's so many.
Yeah, 100%. One thing that it reminds me of during the time of 'cause when I was in Italy, for example, so I love Da Vinci, and during his time, information is being shared, so the development is faster. That's 100%. I think what's happening with AI right now is everybody's sharing bits and pieces of what they know, and this is why I think what you were saying, to add into it, it's we are. I find myself as well studying more than ever, watching YouTube, for example, videos, podcasts about AI, because you might have a different way of thinking than me, but then your way of thinking is solving the problem that I have right now. So by me listening to how you solve it helps me, and now I have these two things that are happening at once, and then someone else would combine again. So your knowledge in orchestrating AI, I think, just got better. I see it kind of like as a maestro in a musical in an orchestra. It's really like, okay, like first you learn, let's say, how to orchestrate the drums and then the trumpet, but then you have to learn it one by one, and you need to have this people that play this instrument to be able to understand how to put them together, right? So it's definitely a lot more time in studying, I think, when I agree with that.
Yeah, yeah, and also I wanted to add, like when you said like the second brain, like I just read about that and I learned about it in the conference. I think there's this thing called pendant that's literally a little thing that you put on, and it records like everything you say. It gives you feedback, or it will take notes on meetings, like basically what we were talking about, Gemini or Zoom assistant, but it like actually gives like real life feedback on things that you tell the AI you want to improve on. So it's just becoming so. At one point, I'm like, I'm not so sure yet I will wear that, but I know for a lot of people could be of great help. Like maybe people that have just so much things going on. Not that I don't do, but I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
not. I'm just
Or
not so sure. Yeah,
or
yeah,
someone might have dementia, for example, that might be really helpful, right?
yeah, yeah.
Or
Yeah.
yeah, or like a reporter, for example. If you're a war
Mhm.
reporter, you don't want to forget things. I think yeah, there's a lot of like really important use cases of it.
Of course, and mainly like right now, I just feel it's a great time, and I'm very grateful that you got to jump into this conversation, because I'm just starting this series of like talking with professionals and creatives and see how we can also help other people, and maybe they will be like, nah, I don't like what they're saying, or maybe it will help them out. So I'm just like super happy to be starting.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well, thanks for having me and thanks for asking.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if you would like to add like something else that you have in mind, or that you want to talk about, anything else, or some announcement that you would like to share with my audience.
Um, Nothing that come on top of my mind. I think for me, I just wanted to have the conversation, and because I think things like this are very helpful to everybody.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining, and I will leave Noah's social media like right somewhere on the screen.
Over here.
Yeah, and also on the description. And yeah, thank you so much, Noah, and I'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thanks, Gabriella.
Thank you.